He was terrible. It was a horrible situation. No, we'll do fine. I've watched some of the people that host. Jimmy Kimmel was horrible. And some of these people, if I can't beat out Jimmy Kimmel in terms of talent, then I don't think I should be president. But I wanted to...
You think he even knows I've never hosted the Kennedy Center Honors? Maybe he's confusing me with Queen Latifah? I don't... And as far as this who has more talent thing goes, it seems like he's challenging me to a contest, which, if so, I'm open to it. Let's do it.
On a night when most people expected punchlines, Jimmy Kimmel decided to take a completely different route after being branded low IQ by Donald Trump. And instead of tossing back another joke, he chose a move that felt calculated, risky, and almost theatrical in its patience, pulling out what he claimed was an old storage box containing Trump's high school academic records during a live broadcast while Trump watched it all unfold in real time, clearly anticipating something he could laugh off. But the second an alleged IQ number entered the conversation, the mood shifted instantly as Trump's composure cracked, his voice rising, the scene descending into chaos as even his camera toppled over, and suddenly the entire audience was left asking the same question about what that number actually was and why it triggered such an explosive reaction.
After all his bombastic and orally flatulent threats about how important economic and military conquest of Greenland is, after all that huffing and puffing, with no warning whatsoever, he just gave up. And let me tell you something, just like that wall Mexico was going to pay for and the caravans that were coming and they're eating the dogs and cats, I'm telling you, after next week, we will never hear about Greenland again. What a blow.
The strange, years-long rivalry between Jimmy Kimmel and Donald Trump has never really felt like a heavyweight political showdown, but more like a personal grudge that somehow escaped a private argument and landed on national television. Because at its core, it was rarely about legislation or ideology, and much more about bruised egos, public ribbing, and two high-profile figures who refused to let even the smallest jab slide without firing something back.
I'll draw something, I'll play my clarinet, he can play golf, spank a porn star, and ruin a country. Now, I'm kidding, of course. The truth is, Donald Trump is he's a very talented person. I mean, the man can sing. The man can act.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
He can dance.
Before we go any further, if you are enjoying this breakdown, take a second to hit subscribe and stay with us because the biggest moments are still coming and you do not want to miss what happens next. And now back to how this whole saga escalated from late-night punchlines and social media barbs into something sharper when Trump, posting on his own platform, labeled Kimmel a low IQ loser, a phrase that sounded less like a polished insult and more like someone projecting their own insecurity onto the nearest target.
You know, he sent this picture after taking a few bites of the tortilla and noticed that it resembled someone. Who does that look like to you? That's right, it's our Gordita Supreme Leader, Donald Trump. You know, some people find Jesus on a tortilla, you found the Antichrist.
Jimmy Kimmel, a host who has built an entire career out of turning chaos into comedy gold, did not respond with outrage or wounded pride because he understood a basic truth that Trump often seemed to miss, which is that ridicule only works in your favor when the crowd is laughing with you and not quietly laughing at you.
He is athletic.
Oh, shake it.
And he's not only an amazing artist, he also is an incredible poet, too. So much talent. So much talent, the only way you can contain it is to lock him up. And I'll tell you something. The Kennedy Center is lucky to have him.
Do you think the center will eventually be named the Trump Kennedy Center?
I don't know.
So when Kimmel hinted that he had something unusual planned for an upcoming episode, longtime viewers could sense this was not going to be routine late-night banter, but one of those rare segments where the gloves come off in a subtle way as the studio atmosphere grew more serious than usual, and Kimmel shifted into a tone that blended playful mischief with almost documentary-style gravity, speaking about Trump's complaints over being called low IQ despite years of loudly praising his own brilliance, then calmly explaining that instead of responding with another insult, he would be responding with paperwork.
Family, it's Donald and Melania's 21st anniversary. 21 years ago today, Melania said, "I do," and a beautiful prenuptial agreement was born. Trump was busy. He was traveling back from Europe today, but he did take time to post something sweet. He posted some random guy calling him greatest president in the world. Period, 3 exclamation points. And that was it. Sorry, Melania.
What followed felt deliberately dramatic in the most entertaining way possible as stagehands rolled out a scuffed, aging file box that looked like it had survived decades of storage and at least one questionable flood, which Kimmel introduced as Trump's permanent academic record from the New York Military Academy, complete with dusty folders and the suggestion that something significant might be buried inside. And while the audience laughed, there was an unmistakable edge to it, because Kimmel was presenting himself less as a comedian and more as a mock archivist, unveiling a historical artifact, carefully explaining that among the contents was a Stanford Binet IQ test allegedly taken in 1964, back when Trump was just a teenager with a softer voice and no global brand attached to his name. And instead of rushing to the punchline, Kimmel walked viewers through the background and reputation of the test, stretching the tension slowly so the reveal felt earned rather than tossed away as a quick gag built on sarcasm alone.
He loves bragging about our American contributions during World War II, as if he had anything to do with that. Trump didn't help win World War II. His dad didn't help win World War II. His grandfather, none of them served. He comes from a long line of vagina-necked men with bone spurs. And I'll tell you something, the soldiers, the troops who did win the war, for them, he cut funding to the VA. So do with that what you will. And yet still, he had the audacity to tell our allies.
As the segment continued, cameras occasionally cut to Trump, who was reportedly live streaming his reaction, and initially appeared relaxed, smiling and gesturing as if he were already composing dismissive posts in his head because he had long relied on confidence to overpower uncomfortable details, which made the shift even sharper when Kimmel calmly referenced abstract reasoning and noted that Trump allegedly placed in the 38th percentile, gently reminding viewers that abstract reasoning shapes how people grasp nuance, symbolism, and long-term consequences, a line that landed with pointed laughter because it subtly echoed years of very public behavior.
Let me just say this, Donald Trump's going to have to be very careful during court-ordered lovemaking tonight because Teddy Roosevelt, I don't know, he may have left his makeup kit at home because, first of all, he's 2 totally different colors. His hand's like a marshmallow. His face is a Costco rotisserie chicken or something. He's got a nasty bruise on his left hand, which doesn't exactly square up with the "he shakes a lot of hands" explanation for the bruises. And he didn't even try to spec.
The response from Trump was immediate and unfiltered, as a man who had centered his identity on being the absolute best suddenly felt that prized label slipping away. And what came out was less a composed rebuttal and more a furious eruption, with shouts that the document was fabricated, that the score was a total lie, and that he was a super genius, a phrase that rarely needs to be spoken by those who feel secure. And in that heated moment, he unintentionally demonstrated that intelligence is measured not just in numbers, but in emotional steadiness, self-awareness, and the ability to handle criticism without unraveling, qualities that seemed notably absent as the scene spiraled.
Now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps.
Okay, so anyone want to guess what the predominant language in Switzerland is? That's right, it's German. They are speaking German. And maybe a little Japanese, I don't know. Somewhere in the Texas brush, George W. Bush is laughing his ass off right now. Trump berated the leaders of the world for an hour and 10 minutes, pure nonsense. And in case you're wondering if he forgot to rant about windmills during that hour and 10 minutes, good news, he got that in too.
The greatest hoax in history.
The intensity did not cool as Trump doubled down, his voice carrying the strain of someone desperate to reclaim a title he believed defined him, insisting again that the paperwork was fake and the number meaningless, while repeating claims of exceptional brilliance. Yet the irony hung heavy, because true confidence rarely demands repetition. And as he argued that intelligence involves composure and perspective, his visible frustration undercut his own point, revealing far more about his temperament than any printed score ever could.
Another country, which by the way is already a weird thing. The idea is just typing out a bitchy little message to the Prime Minister of Norway, a message that explicitly says, since you didn't give me the Peace Prize, I'm thinking about taking Greenland away. It's unheard of. There's nothing to compare it to in the history of humankind. It's like we armed a real housewife with nuclear weapons. This man is crashing the plane because the stewardess didn't bring him a...
What made the entire segment resonate was how Kimmel connected this theatrical reveal to Trump's broader public record without rattling off a long list of examples, briefly mentioning impulsive late-night posts, schoolyard nicknames for opponents, a refusal to admit error, in patterns that began to look less like strategy and more like deep-rooted insecurity, framing the discussion not as a cheap shot at intelligence, but as context, contrasting relentless self-praise with the quiet efficiency of leaders who let outcomes speak for themselves, turning what began as a roast into a broader commentary on why volume so often overshadows substance in modern culture.
Hoax in history. The Green New Scam, windmills all over the place. They don't spin, they don't do anything. They killed the birds, they ruin your landscapes. Every time that goes around, you lose $1,000. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers.
Imagine having to translate that. Did he say the windmills are losers? What did they lose? The real reason Donald Trump hates windmills is because whenever he's near one...
As the bit continued, Kimmel returned to the supposed records and highlighted small human touches such as handwritten teacher remarks describing Trump as energetic, disruptive, and resistant to authority, details that felt less like insults and more like familiar traits anyone who had followed his career would instantly recognize, prompting laughter that felt knowing rather than cruel, as if scattered puzzle pieces had finally clicked together. While Trump's off-camera shouting during his stream became an unintended metaphor for a public life often marked by losing control of the narrative, with Kimmel suggesting that what viewers were witnessing was not embarrassment over a number, but discomfort at the possibility that a carefully crafted self-image might not be as solid as claimed. A thought that lingered because it tapped into a universal fear of being truly seen.
The children who get anything they want, this is how they grow up. President Veruca Salt. I want Greenland. I want it now. All because he didn't get a little medal around his neck. He's a child. His parents let him stay up late last night, and he posted a lot of nonsense. At 1 a.m., he posted this image of himself, little Marco, and J.D. Vance colonizing Greenland. I like this because even in an AI-generated image, J.D. and Marco are like, Jesus Christ, what are we...
In the end, the fictional document worked not because it was shocking or vicious, but because it relied on contrast, placing Trump's grand language beside quiet sheets of paper and allowing the gap between them to tell the story, as Kimmel never needed to raise his voice since the performance of intelligence, or the absence of it, was playing out live on the other screen, making the alleged score of 89 far less significant than the reaction it provoked, because responses reveal character more reliably than boasts ever can, in the visible anger, denial, and refusal to steady himself exposed a fragility that self-proclaimed genius could not disguise, transforming a comedy segment into a surprisingly sharp character study delivered through satire.
And then he went back to his main topic, which is Greenland. Greenland. He said Greenland is not even land. It's a big, beautiful piece of ice. And he should know he's been married to one of those for 20 years. Trump claims the safety of the world depends on the United States owning Greenland, which he repeatedly confused with Iceland. He called Greenland Iceland 4 different times.
I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told him about Iceland.
By the time Kimmel casually remarked that the number seemed to explain quite a bit, the punchline had already settled in because it felt less like an attack and more like overdue clarification, as the myth of the stable genius did not crumble due to a single sheet of paper, but under the accumulated weight of years of behavior that suddenly appeared coherent once the bravado was stripped away, with Kimmel implying that raw intelligence has never been the central issue, since history is filled with leaders who were not prodigies, yet surrounded themselves with capable advisors and listened, suggesting instead that the real obstacle has been a persistent resistance to humility that turns every critique into combat and every joke into a battle to be won.
My Webby Award, the most prestigious award the internet can give, or my Writers Guild Award. This is a good one. You can see it looks nice. Or best of all, I'm willing to hand over my 2015 Soul Train Award for White Person of the Year. You do this. The choice is yours. I will personally deliver any or even all of these to the Oval Office in exchange for leaving the people of Minneapolis alone. Guillermo, return.
Kimmel then broadened the lens further, arguing that Trump's furious outburst fit a familiar pattern seen whenever reality failed to flatter him, whether the topic involved crowd sizes, election outcomes, or simple factual corrections, because the instinct was often to get louder rather than reflective, which might explain why a quiet, unglamorous test score felt threatening, since numbers cannot be bullied and paper does not react to shouting, making the now infamous camera-tipping meltdown appear almost inevitable, with adaptability and self-deprecating humor nowhere in sight, as viewers were left with the image of a man so committed to his own legend that even a fictional challenge seemed capable of shaking it.
I don't know how to... You understand that we are on the verge of going to war over the Nobel Prize for Peace. The irony doesn't get more irony-y than that. We may be invading Europe again, another D-Day, except this time the D stands for dumb. I feel like maybe Trump was embarrassed that his text to the Norwegian Prime Minister went public, because last night, Farty Supreme started posting screenshots of private messages from other leaders to him, including...
As the segment wrapped, Kimmel widened the focus one final time to suggest the story was not just about Trump, but about a culture that rewards spectacle over substance, arguing that Trump's ascent was fueled by a media landscape that often confuses attention with authority and outrage with authenticity, allowing performative confidence to masquerade as competence for years. So the alleged IQ score felt less like a bombshell and more like a reminder that charisma without introspection can be dangerously persuasive. And returning to his familiar comedic rhythm, Kimmel quipped that if Trump truly believed the test was fake, he was welcome to take another one, live on air, provided the remote stayed out of throwing distance, ultimately letting Trump's own reaction deliver the sharpest commentary of all, since the image of a fallen camera and angry voice echoing into empty space said more than any extended monologue could, proving that when bold self-mythology collides with scrutiny, only one tends to remain standing.